In this video, I spent about 30 days animating a LEGO stop-motion video inspired by the video game series Fallout. It required me writing a full original script inspired by Fallout 1, drawing a storyboard, animating, voice acting, and then finally doing VFX and editing. Needless to say, this process takes time, and doing it all in 1 month is hard. This video is a paid partnership with BetterHelp, but more on that later. Luckily for me, I've been building a lot of Fallout inspired builds recently, and I just finished my big Fallout vault, Vault 404. So we can skip a huge part of this process, the set build. So we're actually already done with that. If you want to check out how I built it, I have a video on that as well, but we're gonna use this to make a short film in it. We have this really cool vault with all these different rooms, and I want to tell the story of Vault 404, what actually went on in this vault and who are the people that lives here. We're gonna be following our main character, Lucas. But before we get into that, we have to do something else first. Step 1 in making an animation, or any film in that case, would be a script. We need to write a script, which can be super fun or a bit tedious depending on if you already have an idea or you feel a bit lost and only have a concept. Moving over to step 2, we need a storyboard, and a storyboard is basically your script as a comic book. You don't have to be good at drawing, this is only for yourself so that you know what kind of shots you have planned and what kind of visuals you want to show the audience. You don't even have to do this, but I like to know what kind of shots I've planned and what I thought at the moment when I was writing the script. It's a great way to look back at your script without having to memorize every scene. We're already partially done with step 3, which is set building. We have the huge bunker that I've built, but I want to build some other scenes as well. This, for example, is the vault exit, where the people will exit the vault. And this is a pretty huge scene, so I have to put some effort into this, building it and using parts of the bunker as the set piece as well. When you're making stop motions, you don't have to build the whole scene. You can just put out your camera, put up the camera, and see what the camera actually sees. So you build only what's in the camera view, if that makes sense. That way you don't have to spend an enormous amount of Lego pieces on your set, and you don't have to spend that much time building your set either. This set right here is a big meeting where the overseer is having a crisis meeting, telling everyone in the vault what's going on. And I wanted the camera to move in to the overseer through the audience. So I just took apart a Lego train and used the train tracks to build a dolly. Since this is how you would do the shot if these were real people, it also works on a Lego scale. You just have to think smaller. It is always good to use what you already have, because using what you have can make a scene look so much bigger if you just build from the camera view. That's the only thing that matters when you're doing animation, so setting up the camera before you build your scene really makes a huge difference. Here I'm doing a shot that takes place in the city, so I'm just grabbing some old houses from another project. I want to thank BetterHelp for this paid partnership. I know that Lego is a kind of therapy for most people, but sometimes that isn't enough. Ever since I started working full-time as a Lego YouTuber, I've actually been feeling kind of lonely, which feels weird. I spend all day in my Lego studio building, so I can easily forget talking to people or even connecting to someone. The Lego bricks, they do help, but sometimes that's just not enough, and it can be good to talk to someone. If you have friends and family you can open up to, that's great. But not all of us feel comfortable doing that, so it can be helpful to talk to someone that's unbiased and professional. If you're like me, you'd probably be more willing to talk to a therapist online if it was as easy as buying Lego online. This is what BetterHelp does. All you have to do is go to my link and take their quiz. BetterHelp will analyze your answers and match you with one of their 30,000 plus therapists they think is best suited for you. And if the match isn't quite right, you can switch at no additional cost. There's a reason that 4 million people have turned to BetterHelp for mental health support. Visit betterhelp.com/V.P.L.O studios to receive a discount on your first month. Step 4 is the obvious one, animation. This step is the step that takes the absolute most time. You're going to spend hours upon hours just standing in the dark animating, feeling alone, listening to a podcast, listening to music, questioning your life. But when you're finally done, it's going to look amazing. And this process is really fun. I mean, I've been doing it for almost 10 years now, maybe even more, and I still enjoy it, even though it's a tedious process and it can take a lot of time and sanity from you. it still is very fun in the end. I've recently found a lot of cool small LED lights for Lego scenes which are perfect. They are so small that they can fit in a 1x1 round brick or a 1x1 stud. It works just perfectly. That way you can get natural lights in your scene, such as small lamps or ceiling lamps, ceiling lights, TVs, whatever you want to light up, you can use these small lights. And they are actually put into Lego bricks, or you can buy them separately. I also have this cool LED bar. I don't know where it's from. I think it's a makeup light, but it works perfect as a ceiling light as well. The story I want to tell is about Lucas, and Lucas is just a regular vault dweller living in Vault 404, similar to Emmett from the Lego movie. He just enjoys his life in the vault, does what he does every day, day in, day out, but he loves it, and one day everything goes wrong. In this scene, my goal was to make Lucas run on a treadmill. Seems simple enough, but I want him to be in the air, getting that feeling of a bit comical style. So I have to put him on this rig to have him in the air and animate the background at the same time, then do some masking and put him on the scene. It seems a bit complicated and difficult, but I'll show you in the editing. So I was building on this scene earlier, but this is the scene where Lucas finds the big city. He's all lost and alone in the big world. His first time outside of the vault. And I want this shot to feel big. So I'm putting up my camera on a tripod, moving it as far as possible away from the scene to get that big scale. By moving things around to match what I want the camera to see, this scene gets that big perspective that I want, making the scene look much bigger than it actually is. Here we have Lucas standing on the bridge looking out over the city. And the shot in itself, I mean, the scene, it doesn't look that big, but the shot makes it look even bigger because of the perspective. So moving some buildings around, we can get that even grander scale. Flipping the whole thing on its side and putting some extra buildings into the shot makes it a whole nother scene, another perspective. So obviously this is raw animation. I'm gonna do a lot of editing on it, doing it in After Effects and some editing overall with color correction. But I think we ended up with some good looking material. Another cool shot is this iconic red rocket scene. Lucas meets Dogmeat, or his version of Dogmeat, which is a nice dog that starts following him around. And the red rocket is such an iconic building to Fallout, so I wanted to do it justice by getting that wide shot where you can see the text saying red rocket and the iconic red rocket on top. Here's Dogmeat, Lucas' new best friend. For the blue background here, you can see it looks a bit sketchy, but that's because I've used wrapping paper with some weights pulling it down, and some weights at the top of the backdrop to actually stretch it out and have it as a background. Don't judge me, I didn't have a blue background. The program I use when I do stop motion is called Stop Motion Studio. It's free. I have the pro version where you get some extra features, but you don't need that if you want to do this at home. And the process is really simple. Take a picture, move, take a picture, move the camera, move the figures, take a picture, and repeat that process, ending up with something like this. I think we ended up with a cool, neat looking scene, but obviously there is some cleanup to do afterwards. In this video, there's obviously a lot to animate. Everything from outside in the wasteland, the big city, to these small rooms inside the vault. And these can be quite tricky to animate in, so I removed the roof and I removed some walls. That way we can get a much clearer look at what we actually animate. However, it can be difficult because these sets were not built for animation, they're purely built for display. So there was a bit of a struggle with animating this, but it worked out in the end. Here I'm trying to animate Lucas eating his favorite breakfast, Sugar Bombs. This is the most popular cereal brand in the Fallout universe, and man does this guy love it. I wanted to animate his face without doing too much in post, so I switched out the heads, but now the eyebrows is a problem instead. They're brown and black and they should be dark tan. That's when step 5 comes in, the VFX part. We have to fix those eyebrows, making them dark tan and match his regular face. And this process, this can be tedious. I'm using After Effects. This is by all means nothing I would do in a bigger project, but since this is a small short film, I want it to be as good as possible. So having the eyebrows the right color, I don't know, it felt important to me. So here's about 2 hours of work I'll never get back in my life. I mean, if you know, you know, but you can barely notice that it would be a different face with a different color for the eyebrows. Here's another example of some VFX we needed to do. He's camping out here with dog meat, and we need to add some embers and add some extra glow to that fire. Here we have Lucas on a treadmill, and this one is a bit more tricky because we have the background here with the janitor sweeping. So we have to add this in and add Lucas on top of it, removing the bar that's holding him. So that's a lot of masking work. Thankfully, After Effects is very good at this. Removing the bar and adding the janitor to the background, and we're done with the scene.
My name is Lucas, and I live in Vault 404. We had no idea it was up to us.
Done with the embarrassing voice acting, we can move on to the editing. And this part, it takes a lot of time as well. If you haven't guessed it already, all of the parts of this project takes time. Making movies and making short films, well, it's time consuming, but it's also very fun. Now we gotta make sure that all of these clips we've got actually makes a story. We also have to add some sound effects, some music, and some color grading to get those colors a bit nicer. Following all these steps and working for about 30 days, we're finally done. So let's show you a trailer.
I've spent my entire life underground, and I was happy. But one day, everything changed. Now, I'm all alone.
Tear him apart! Will you just...